In the Chinese understanding of energy, and you would find exactly the same in electricity, yin and yang energy need to be balanced, as positive and negative need to be balanced in electricity. In fact, in electricity, if you have more of one than the other, I don't think it works at all. They absolutely have to be balanced. So in the human system, human energy, we're never born fully balanced. We're born with a combination of different elements in the Chinese understanding, and there is always imbalance there in various different areas of our life. What's much more challenging is that our culture tends to favor a certain kind of energy, especially at the moment. We very much favor and teach from an early age a very yang approach to life. So school is all about achievement. It's about very doing kinds of activities. There's very little passivity, there's very little being in school. And if you think about it, we tend to, for example, favor the children who put their hands up all the time, like me, 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 not the children who are more quiet and more reflective. They can easily be overlooked in a busy, noisy classroom, as I saw many times when I was a teacher and when I was visiting schools. I used to visit schools all the time and make recordings when I was working for the BBC. That was my job. And in business, everything is about goals, it's about productivity, it's about planning, it's about action, it's about implementation. In fact, there's a guy I know who runs a business, I guess it's kind of like an accelerator program. Very, very, very good guy. And he constantly writes about productivity and increasing productivity. And I can feel, when I see his posts on Facebook, I can literally feel the exhaustion that is sitting beneath the surface, this constant pressure to do more, to achieve more, to implement more, to produce more. And behind it is his energy, and the energy of all the people who follow that system is getting more and more exhausted. Because if you have yang without yin, you don't have balance. And in the end, that energy has nowhere to go. It's literally self-defeating. It's like self-destroying. And it becomes very forceful. It also even creates a counter force. So you then have to work twice as hard to produce whatever it is you want to produce. Yin energy is tends to be very unfavored. I know a lot of people, for example, whose energy is naturally quite yin. It may be quite a dark energy. That doesn't mean evil, and it doesn't mean negative, but it's dark, it's heavy. And that is just as perfect, just as right as energy that's light. Light is the opposite of dark, and heavy, light and light. But we tend to think that we need to be light all the time. We've come to an understanding that we need to be positive all the time. In fact, I saw something the other day, a guy who was talking about why it's so important not to be positive all the time. He said that he tried being positive and he found that he stopped feeling anything because he was constantly having to be positive. And it brought him completely out of touch. But we have now produced a society where we're trying to be positive all the time, and actually at the same time we have this massive expansion in depression, and so people who are locked into a very unhealthy and unbalanced form of negativity. So natural negativity is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, as I often represent here. Natural dissatisfaction, for example, is very powerful, because out of that is where creativity is born. If you're never dissatisfied, you're never really going to create anything. Why would you bother? So I don't want to be positive all the time. We don't want to be negative all the time. We don't want to be active all the time. We don't want to be passive all the time. But because we so much favor the yang, and especially in business, and double especially if you run your own business, of course, then it's all about you, and it's all about this massive, people talk all the time about massive action, massive goals, exponential growth. Those are all ultra yang approaches to life. You can actually only have exponential growth if you have great balance and a tremendous amount of yin energy. Because the yin energy is the receptivity. It's the divine mother energy. And it's the energy that's actually coming in. It's becoming stronger in our culture. We've been in a very masculine age for a long time. And I think most people know now that we're entering a more feminine age. Now, that doesn't mean we want to go all yin, because we're still looking for balance within ourselves and balance with life. But that yin receptivity, if you can really feel it, is tremendously powerful. I often talk about the people I've met who pray a lot. Praying is praying, asking for things, and that kind of prayer tends to be quite yang. And very often they're not receptive. They don't allow themselves to receive anything. They're always trying to please God and satisfy God and do the right things. And they're always trying to be good for God, trying to deserve God's favor. And so they never actually take the time to simply receive from God, to let God shower them with his or her blessings. And so they don't receive. They don't get what they are asking for, because they don't make time for the energy that allows that to happen. So it's the same in business. If you're all doing and putting out, and there's not enough receiving, it's really hard to get the kind of results that you're looking for. That's why people often start to get more results when they start to learn relaxation, is because it's a balance to all of that activity. It opens people up and makes them more receptive. But I find that it's not enough for me to just do relaxation, so to speak. I find it's necessary at times simply to have a day of really doing nothing, of really being. And it's about sitting. It's about not sitting in meditation, but sitting, just doing nothing. And because I tend to be quite yang anyway, and my energy is pretty yang energy, the first part of that just requires me to do nothing. And I will often feel that I'm wasting time. And my mind will say, Sarah, there are so many things you need to do. This is absolutely crazy. How can you do this? You just can't afford to do it. But what I find is if I try to go and do things then, they feel so self-defeating. They feel so weak. It's like there's no power in my action. And I need to be very patient, like really deeply patient, to let my energy change and to allow it to become more yin. And that's the challenging part for people who are used to being busy and proactive, to be so passive that it's like waiting for a bus that's never going to come. It has that kind of feeling at first. It's just sitting there. It's like, what's the point of this? There's nothing going on. I'm not doing anything. I'm not achieving anything. I'm not creating anything. I'm not organizing anything. I'm not planning anything. I'm not doing any strategy. Nothing's going to happen. And then there's such an urge to just get out there and get stuff done. This GSD has done so much harm in business. Yes, of course, it's important to get stuff done. And it is so important. to have time, to be receptive, to let stuff in. Maybe that's a little meme that we can create. Don't just get stuff done, let stuff in. Let it in. It's so important. It's hard to describe how important it is, but you'll see. And for those of you who are very active and very yang, you'll see that the minute you've spent a little bit of time being yin, you start to feel you have more power, because there's this tremendous power that grows within you. But it's not a kind of chopping wood type of power. It's just this extraordinary, expansive, quiet power. And the minute you have a little bit of it, I can virtually promise you that you'll be out doing again. You'll try to exhaust it as soon as it's there. In the age we're going into, we're looking for more balance. If you want to be integrated, an integrated human being, go beyond the divisive nature, the duality of human life that we've lived with so strongly over the past, all living history. We've been in this very strong duality. If you want to go beyond that into the integral age, as we call it, where we actually integrate masculine and feminine, you need to be able to deal with the feminine and to actually experience that feminine power, which is quiet. It's actually very expansive. Although feminine, the yin would be contraction rather than expansion, like yang is expansion, yin is contraction. In the contraction of doing nothing, there is a deep expansiveness that grows. Everything kind of produces its opposite. And so the deep, dark feminine allows that fast, active masculine to have power. And without it, you will lose power. You will cut off your own power. So yes, when you try to do this, it's a good idea to do it at the weekend or when you've got a day that you don't have to achieve a lot. And you don't have to do this, I don't think it's realistic in our culture for most people probably to do 50%. It would be interesting to see what would happen if we could. And definitely I'm going to push myself, she says in a rather yang way. I'm definitely taking steps now to do more of that, because I found that I get really out of balance when I don't. And the results do directly diminish for me, the more active I am. There is a lot to do, but I can feel it. It's like a busyness on the outside, but you can feel your energy becoming kind of exhausted on the inside. So you have to keep pushing yourself to do more. And when I allow that receptivity, it's like the well being filled up. If you never let the well be filled up, there's nothing that you can draw out in the bucket. So yeah, the biggest challenge in being yin is the desire to quit, is this burning need to get into action, to do something, and this terrible feeling that you're wasting time. Like wasting time, that is criminal activity. And so the moment you feel you can, you rush back into activity. But it's not wasting time. It's actually creating time. If you have yin and yang balanced, your time is powerful. There is so much reserve in you that it takes way less activity to create what you want to create. There's an ease that comes when you have a balance between yin and yang, which you never ever get if you're over yang. There's a depth to the reserve that you can't possibly get through action. You get it through reception, receptivity, through receiving, deeply receiving, being replenished, being nourished. And you don't need to get this from another person. In fact, you can't get this from another person unless you're able to give it to yourself. If you're able to allow life to nourish you, really deeply nourish you and replenish you and feed you. So it's not you feeding yourself all the time. I'm taking care of it and I'm taking care of everybody else. It's you being fed by life, also by other people. So allowing people to give to you, not easy for many leaders. Many leaders want to be the person who's giving to everybody else. It's a way of keeping control. So to actually be fed by all the people around you, to receive from them, they're all there giving their gifts on your mission. And yet so often the leader wants to control, wants to manage, wants to dominate, wants to be the one who gives to everybody else. And actually all those people are giving virtually all their energy and by far the best of their energy to your mission. Let's hope it's their mission as well. So you can't do anything as a leader without people around you. And if you're unable to receive the energy that they're giving you, there's this really unnatural cycle amongst you. And that's why there are so many problems in business, people problems, because there isn't a proper flow of energy. In fact, if you think about it, all those people, they give you energy all the time. You need to be able to receive from them. Otherwise, if you're constantly trying to give them energy, it gets really unnatural. There's no cycling around. You can only give them energy if you're also able to receive. But in order to be able to receive from people, you need to be able to receive from life. You need to be able to be deeply nurtured by life, to have your energy truly replenished, to be able to receive. And that requires this kind of yin position. Yin energy is also traditionally the energy of spirituality. I think there's a modern spirituality growing that is much more balanced between yin and yang. And definitely I'm in favor of that more balanced spirituality. That's definitely what I've been developing. But in order to get there, we usually have to become very yin, deeply receptive. David Hawkins, who wrote Power versus Force and did a huge amount of research on spirituality and enlightenment. And what he talks about is that it is entirely yin. Actually, everything in that style of spirituality is about being yin. It's about being receptive. It's about letting go. And you just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into receptivity. And that's traditionally, that's a way of becoming enlightened. But there's a price that he had to pay, which was that he just wanted to stay there. And he had to kind of come out of that in order to be active in the world and in order to contribute as a human being. So for me, he went a certain distance, and he actually had to be more yang as well. But I wouldn't say he resented it, but there was a way in which he saw that as a sacrifice, because the yin gave him this deep, extraordinary, blissful inner state that he wanted to stay in all the time. So spirituality has traditionally been yin. Most of us need a lot of that yin activity to balance ourselves spiritually. And then you're able to make a contribution that is your spiritual contribution as well as your action contribution. So that means your purpose contribution. If you want to contribute aligned with your purpose, you need to have a real depth of yin energy as well. It's very, very different. And honestly, like, I do the activations and I do relaxations to give you a kind of, it's like a compressed yin energy. But I personally find that that's not enough. It's not enough to do relaxation. People sometimes say to me, I do my relaxation every day, Sarah. It's like, I'm being good. I'm doing everything you told me to do. I find that it's really necessary to spend some time, in that yin state. Very quiet, very wandering, very non-directional.